Well, welcome to Imperfect Together. I am Chris. Zach is not here today, but I have some special people. I got Tim. Tim's been here a long time.
A couple times.
Yep, you were here a few weeks ago, right? And we got Bobby. Bobby was here back in November.
Yep.
And I don't know what we talked about, but Bobby was on. So, ready to rock and roll. So here's the starting question for you today. Has there been a time where you wanted to learn something or you started something, whatever, and you got distracted or just gave up on it? This is for either of you, either.
Like the podcast.
It's still going.
Might find this shocking, but it was actually a music. Started, gave up a little bit, and then I was around like maybe 7, 8 where I started really picking up the drums like again. So.
Okay, Bobby, if you were 7 or 8, at what point did you give up on it?
Well, my dad started me when I was 4 years old, and
So when you went through a rebellious 5-year-old stage and
pretty much, yeah.
gave up on music, and
Yeah.
now you play every instrument known to man.
Yeah. Still learning too.
You got it?
Oh, yeah.
I was just, what's one?
Well, let's see. Oh, there's so many things that I've quit doing that got distracted. I may have to come back on that. I'm not sure all of them are roadworthy.
Well, of all of them, why do you think it is so easy for us to get distracted or give up on things that we intend to do them, or we wouldn't start it to begin with?
I think there are a lot of factors that could play into that. I think one is the fact that we become distracted by things that go. It's just like taking a walk in the woods. And if you get distracted looking at flowers or animals or something else, you just get off course. And once you get off course, then sometimes it's easy to find the path again. Sometimes you just, there's not any underbrush here. I can just keep going this direction. And I think I'm going in the same direction until I realize that I'm walking in a circle. I think sometimes it's just something simple. I think there are other times we probably pour into thinking about something else, and the new and the flash wears off, and it just becomes something of a drudgery more so than it does a passion.
I'm really good at starting things. I'm really bad at finishing them. I get bored with them too fast.
Or some people might find it too difficult, so they just give up easy. They're like, oh, it's too hard. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's like, let's say you take a break from it for a period, and then it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, you just forget about it. That's a real thing. Out of sight, out of mind is a real thing. Because if it's not around, I'm not thinking about it. I'm not focusing on it or anything like that. So, my wife is calling. We'll send her a voicemail.
And you just screenshot of the phone.
Oh, I did. That's all right. I think too, we're not very good at putting together a plan when it comes to wanting to start something. So creating some habits or a plan that would actually help us achieve the goal. And then, because when you try to make stuff up as you go, it doesn't work out as well. Right? So you got to kind of have a plan. So this side is, we talked about things, but can this happen with relationships?
Oh, easily.
As not necessarily like dating relationships, Bobby, but because I know that's where your head went. But just friendships, anything. Can this happen with relationships? Or you just get bored with some?
I think so. I think that's a good term. We get bored with it because the excitement of it could be that we just are so familiar with it. It just is easy. How many times have you heard people talk about it in a relationship? Well, I haven't seen somebody for this long, this many months, or this many years, and it was like we just right back into where we were, just like it was yesterday. And I think some of that is just the comfort and being relaxed in it. But some of it is, as you said, out of sight, out of mind, and we become without purpose, without a goal. We don't have a plan. It's just we're waiting to see what's going to be next, and what might be next might not be something that we can handle or manage. And I think that's easily distractible.
You ever just drifted apart from somebody, Bobby?
Yeah. I noticed after graduated high school, all my friends that I thought were in high school, we all kind of like went our own ways, and there's some people I haven't talked to since I saw them on graduation day. It's just like, it's not like anything bad happened. It's just drifted apart, and we're moving on to bigger and like better things. Like, it's the main thing about when you graduate high school.
So true. I think I talked to 2 people from high school still. Really, I only talked to 1. But the other one the other one I would say is kind of like what you said, where we haven't talked in years probably, but if we were to get together again, we'd just pick right back up where we left off. But then there's other relationships where it's, sometimes this sounds terrible, but I hear about people from high school and I forget that I went to high school with them. I'm like, or I forget, like, who, I went to high school with you? Like, that's terrible. I don't see them face to face, but you drift apart. You forget things. I mean, it's been a long time now.
You graduated. You've been out of
I
school
graduated
for,
in 2002.
So
it's almost 20 years.
Yeah, you almost
20 years.
You're old, man.
I am old. So, can we do this with God then? Can we drift from God, or can we intend to start a good relationship and then fade apart or anything like that?
Bobby?
I mean, I actually kind of see this a lot in some people that I used to hang out with. Why going to church with some other friends at a different church, they'd have like kind of phases where they'd be really into God, and you'd see them posting on their social media all the time, every Bible verse every day. And then one day for like a couple months, they just like stop, and they kind of, not make the best decisions, but then they get back into it. It's like, that's one relationship that I think they may think I'll never lose, but maybe they feel like they need a break, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't think I personally could never take a break from God. I'm always trying to see, okay, what can I do to grow in relationship with God?
Yeah, I think the biggest example I ever see of this is like summer camp.
Yeah.
Where they've had an intentional week of spending time with God, and you're on this, you're super pumped up and you're ready to have the best relationship ever, and then 2 weeks later, it's fizzled and faded, and God, who? Wait, what? So, I see that happen a lot.
I know that again, back to familiarity, probably the people who have the biggest drift, if we call it drift, are not people who don't go to church or don't do these things, or maybe just kind of fall out, like you said. But I think some of the people that have the biggest distance and drift are the people who go to church all the time. Because what happens is the familiarity of that, we just think, okay, well, it's like when a kid, I go home and my family is there, I just take for granted that they're there. I may even just go to my room. I might have dinner, may not have dinner at the table. We may fix a plate and go back to my room and play games. I may be outside and not have communication and relationship with them in the way that is meaningful. It might be something that I just take for granted that they're always there. And a lot of people, I think, find that relationship in church very familiar. And church is where they go and they experience certain things, but they really don't have communication. And really the relationship is strained more so than someone who has chosen specifically to say, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't care what's right or wrong. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And I think that's a bigger drift, if we can use that term, in most cases.
I think that's a real good point. I think, so over the next few weeks, I want to look more at, like, how do we fix that? And, like, habits to create and all that kind of stuff. But today I want to look at why. Like, why, first of all, is it even important to have a relationship with God? Why is that something that we should value?
Well,
What was that? I'll defer to you, Tim.
with a relationship with God, I think is, in one sense, more so than just the insurance of going to heaven, because that's where we begin with that relationship. Is we think that that's going to be what we need. We need a relationship with God in order to go to heaven, and that's true. We accept what Jesus did in dying in our place, but the relationship is the process of how we grow and move away from or toward certain aspects of. It's not just then being bad versus being good. The relationship aspect of a relational communion or connection with God is more than just good, bad, or heaven. And it's about a relationship the same as a relationship with our friends. I'm not friends with a certain person just because they're going to get me into a particular business. I'm not friends with someone just because if I know them, then I will choose to either be on this side or on this side of issues. It's a matter of that relationship it's good for me. It helps me to grow. It helps me to understand me. It helps me to feel that I have a purpose. It helps me to feel that there is something that I was intended for. And so to have a relationship with God is very much the same, in knowing that we are going to be born, we're going to die, and through our life there are going to be things we encounter. And we know that there's coming a time where our life will end, and hopefully it's way down the road for us as we begin this. But the purpose, not just going to heaven at the end of our life, but the purpose of how we're going to live that, the enjoyment, the peace that we're going to have. Those are the elements that I think having that relationship will benefit so much more so.
Yeah, kind of. I can really relate to that. You make everything sound like awesome. Just saying that too. You make everything sound really cool. Like, I know the relationship with me and God is like really holy. Like it's really good, just because I know whenever I'm stressed or something out, first thing I do is just I'm praying to Him. It's like, hey, God, help me through this. Sometimes I'll either be driving, or I drive a lot. That's where I pray. Or sometimes while I'm at work, I pray, and I don't realize I'm praying out loud. I just start talking to myself. Someone's like, Bible, who you talking to? I'm like, oh, sorry. And I just feel like because my relationship with Him is so, it's powerful. Like I know like me and Him could I can go to Him with anything. I feel like I can take on this crazy world as long as I have Him like in my heart. Because I know my life has been it's changed. It's a complete 180 from when I didn't like really have that connection with Him like I do now.
I think it's part of why the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Like Jesus was saying, hey, of all the commandments, this is what you want to focus on. Then love your neighbor as yourself. But so there was a reason He said, hey, focus on connecting with God, because I mean, that's why you feel the way you do right now, because you started working on that and you developed that relationship. I also think y'all talked about this a few weeks ago in John 15, where He talks about the vine and the branches. Right. Explain that to me a little bit, and then I want to take it and I want to make it a modern day version.
Okay. So you want me to talk about what that is?
Why? What is the significance of that, John 15, and how it relates to connecting with God?
Well, if you think about just the source of life, you can't a limb just doesn't exist. A limb that falls off a tree does not exist. There is no life source. Mm-hmm. It's a dead stick at that point. When He was talking about remaining in the vine, the source of life comes from the wholeness of the vine. It comes from the life, the sap that is in the vine. It comes from what is flowing through to those other aspects. Fruit is going to be allowed to grow. And the one interesting thing is that fruit is something that is designed to be utilized, something that is designed to be pulled off or to be picked, used in some form. It's not just to grow and then not have purpose. So that's why we talk about fruit of the Spirit. You talk about even flowering plants. There's a purpose for that. They have a reason. But when Jesus was talking about that, I'm the vine, you're the branches, it was the source is not on your own. There has to be a connectedness. And without that connectedness, then you're just a dead stick. And he says, and those dead sticks are just picked up, piled up, burned. They're not going to be alive. They're not going to have life in them.
Yeah, I think of it this way. So, part of the reason you use that example is because everybody understood agriculture at that time. Right? That was an easy example for people to understand and follow. In today's world, we don't understand farming at all, unless you're a farmer. Right, Bobby, do you understand farming and planting trees and growing vegetables? And
Not a whole lot, no.
no, I didn't think so. So I think I was reading something, like another good way to put it would be to talk about technology or your phone and how, here, I'm going to read a different way of saying it and then we'll talk about it. So it'd be like saying, I am the power outlet and you are the cord. If you remain in me and I in you, you will power many devices. Apart from me, you can power nothing, right? So obviously God is the source and we are the cord, right? If I have my phone, I can't plug my phone straight into the thing. I have to have a cord. So if I plug the cord into the power outlet and plug it into my phone, it's going to charge my device. It's going to charge itself. But if I don't plug it into the outlet, it's not going to do anything. It's going to eventually run out of battery and die. Right? That's the example, what he's trying to say. So connecting with God is saying, hey, we've got to connect daily. Like I have to charge my phone every day, or it's going to be good for a little while and it's going to fizzle out and fade and it's just going to die. And then it becomes useless. This expensive phone becomes worthless if it isn't connected to the source. And so I think when we talk about connecting with God, and why that's important, I think that's what we're looking at is like, I have to keep being refueled because I can't sustain this on my own because I'm not the source of life and energy. God is. So we have to keep connecting with him on a regular basis. So what then would be some of the results that we can expect or look for when we choose to connect with God on a daily basis, let's say?
Well,
I was like, I need more time to think.
Well, it's like going to sleep. When your physical body is not designed to go without rest. You just can't. Your muscles will not renew themselves. You can't. Your body is just going to give out if it's continually under that stress. And mentally, if we never have downtime, if we never are able to not shut it off, but to be able to just relax and not feel the stress, it's the same in our spiritual life. Though it doesn't seem like stress affects us, it does. Because that's what, when Jesus talked about sowing the seed, if you remember another agricultural reference, when he talked about planting, the way that they would broadcast the seed, it was throw it out and then the birds would get some would just not grow, some would grow a little bit because it was hard ground, and some would really take root. But he said something about it. He said the cares of this world, the stress of the things that we have to deal with, affect us even spiritually. That we don't possibly feel that stress like we do the stress of our body or the stress of our minds. But there is a spiritual stress, and that stress is the fact that we begin to depend on us. And the more that we depend on ourselves and the more that we kind of turn inward, we start finding frustration probably is the biggest area that we go. But the things that draw us away from peace. Peace is the essence of our relationship with God. It's what we rest in. It's what we are able to relax in our spiritual life, to feel that there not just is a purpose that we're moving toward, but there's a pillar upon which we are building our life. And if there's not peace, then it's chaos all the time. And chaos all the time is stress. And Jesus said there is stress in the in the spiritual realm. And when we pull back and we don't have that period of time to depend on something outside of ourselves, then we are completely drained. Our batteries are drained, as you said, and then it becomes something that our connection to anyone is affected when we reach that point of frustration. And so then we start to have battles with other people, then we start to have interpersonal problems, and that is going to bleed into every aspect of our life.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've heard this metaphor used before, like the whole water thing. Like, you have a pitcher full of water and you keep pouring out, but eventually once you run out, you have to go refill it. And I feel like that's kind of where I see a lot of people struggle, like whether they're doing so much other things, and then they just need to put the brakes and say pause. I need some God time, and then they're able to go back through it again. So it's kind of like how church, for me, every Wednesday night, I'm always taking the messages and I'm trying to carry it throughout my week. But then the next Wednesday, I know I'm going to get a refresher and something else to carry out through my life as well too.
Yeah, I mean, connecting with God just helps us know Him better. But I think too, it's like it doesn't just happen. Like it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. You can't. Like even in gardening, that's part of why we don't garden. That's a lot of work. So as we begin to wrap this up, I want to kind of throw out a challenge. I'm going to ask you one last question to kind of help with that. But like if you're watching this, I would challenge you to spend 15 minutes each day with God. Just 15 minutes. And we'll look at some maybe ways here in a minute because, like I said, in the next few weeks, we'll look at specific habits that we want to create in order to connect with God. So as we kind of wait on that and we say, okay, if I'm going to just spend 15 minutes with God, whatever that looks like, what are some ways that we can do that just this week?
I'm trying to start reading the Bible more, like
Okay.
sometimes before I go to bed at night, because first of all, I'm not a good reader, and sometimes reading the Bible the way it's written, it's tough for like, especially when I'm reading out loud and I have to go back and read through it again. So I'm trying to like understand, so that way when I'm talking, I can use more like biblical and like support from the Bible instead of just sometimes my personal experience. I like to quote the Bible as well too.
Yep, that's one way.
One of the things that you may have heard, of course, age you hear a lot more, but feeling like you're alone in a crowded elevator. Keep that thought in mind. Being in an elevator, you're never alone when it's full, but you can be in a crowd and feel like you're alone. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I want to go kind of make a wide swing around because I talk a lot. To spend time with God, that is such a term that is difficult for a FaceTime Zoom generation to really grasp.
Yeah, because He's invisible. You can't see Him.
Can't see Him. It would be like always talking to our family on the phone and never ever seeing them. Mm-hmm. Having never seen them, never going to be able to see a picture of them, never going to physically be able to lay eyes on these people, then yet we talk to them on the phone. The difficulty of that is, well, if we don't have some ability to hear back or see back, then we're not going to maintain that very well. Mm-hmm. So to understand spending time with God is when I get into the truck with my son, we can be in the same place and we can talk and not really have a tight communication or tight connection. The relationship could be strained. But we could also be in the same situation, the same truck, and not say a word and be very connected and have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. So the essence isn't just about the spending of time, which I think a lot of people hear when you say 15 minutes, the first thing they thought is, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's not about that time. It's about what happens in that connection. when we either read the Bible or we listen to music or we sing or we pray or whatever it is, it's a matter of that connecting to something that we might not see, something that we may not hear, or we may not even feel. Because a lot of people want to feel God's presence. And it's not always going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Will and I can sit in the truck and we can be in the same place and be completely separated. We can be in the same place and not say a word and be completely connected. And it's the same way with a relationship with God. It's dependent on us. It's depending on how we are willing to be open to hear, mm-hmm. or open to share, or open to see and understand. Because words in a page in a book that was written 2,000 years ago is sometimes hard to get, just like Bobby said. But when we understand that is us making effort, us seeking, mm-hmm. us learning and wanting and desiring, and then being able to be open about what we feel, it changes that 15 minutes into a connectedness.
Mm-hmm. There's times we used to go sit. I worked at a camp, and we would take groups, and we would go and like just sit in silence. We'd go on this hike, and we'd sit on like the edge of a cliff, not literally, but a big rock area, just surrounded by, just overlooking, like a big lookout area. And we would just sit there for 30 minutes. And it was in those times, like, you're not reading anything. Reading is good because it helps us learn. That's how we gain knowledge. But sometimes spending time with God is just sitting and listening, just sitting in quiet and silence. Sometimes I feel closest to God when I'm around water, right? If I'm at the lake or the ocean or whatever. But I think it's because you're choosing to be intentional with it, yes. Right? It's choosing to say, okay, God, I want to spend this time with you. I want to reflect on nature. I want to, whatever it is, it's the intentionality behind it, not necessarily the action. Because I could also read the Bible and spend zero time with God because I'm just reading it as a checklist. That's not helping anything. Right. I don't know. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah. I'll use an example for seeing. I've been here for a little bit now. Wednesday nights when we do our worship, from like that first, it started off where everyone's just kind of like, just, it's the first couple of weeks, so they're just kind of like standing there, they're singing, and we're doing the Jesus stuff, but we don't feel like the connection. But now the past couple months, I mean, you just kind of see all the kids, they're connected, but they're not talking to each other. They're worshiping, and some kids feel that connection where they just like sit and close their eyes. And I've even felt a connection on God where I've stopped playing my guitar and just mm-hmm. looked at it and just go, wow, because it makes those 15 minutes go by like really fast. You don't even realize how long you've been there. Like it's something that it's kind of like, it's not the amount of time, it's what you do in that time.
No, I agree, and it's not necessarily how you do it or how you choose to, because there's hundreds, thousands of ways how, but it's that you choose to do it over and over again and start to create a habit of, okay, I'm spending time with God today. It may look different every single day, but I'm choosing to spend some intentional time connecting with God. I think that's what it's really about. I mean, James says that come near to God and he will draw near to you. All right, so as we're pursuing God, God's going to show up. He's not going to just leave us abandoned, But it's also not like every moment's going to be this great spiritual moment. Like, it just is what it is. But I think it's developing that habit, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And then it becomes things where you could sit in silence for an hour and just feeling God, or like I don't even know how to explain it, if that makes sense, because it's invisible. He doesn't talk back. Yeah. But at the same time, the Holy Spirit speaks in us and through us. So find some ways to connect with God today, whether it's going for a walk, praying, reading, spending some time in nature. It doesn't matter what it is. Just choose to be intentional with some time and start developing the habit of connecting with God. So thank you guys so much for being here with us today. We are glad that you are here with us, and we will be back over the next few weeks digging a little bit deeper into more of the habits that we can create to help kind of take our relationship with Jesus to the next level. So love you guys. Thanks for being here.